Welcome to Warriors of the World. Today, we dive into the lives of the Nubians, legendary warriors of the Nile's banks. Picture yourself traveling back in time, under the blazing desert sun, where the wind sweeps across golden sands and life thrives along the river that shaped entire civilizations. Here, you'll find a resilient and proud people, with a longbow in hand and their gaze fixed firmly on the horizon. The Nubians were not only masters of warfare but also guardians of a rich culture that flourished south of Egypt. Skilled hunters and deadly archers, they were feared even by the most powerful pharaohs. Known as the Masters of the Bow, they dominated the Nile Valley for centuries, defending their lands and building a kingdom that stood toe-to-toe with Egypt during some of the most dramatic moments in ancient history. But who were these warriors? How did they live? What made them so extraordinary on the battlefield? Today, you'll discover how the Nubians transformed the bow into a weapon of power and a symbol of their identity. Get ready for an exciting journey through time. You'll see how these warriors overcame challenges, influenced empires, and carved their names into history. Stay with us, because the adventure is just beginning. Let's uncover the lives, achievements, and legacy of the Nubians, the masters of the Nile's banks. To understand the Nubians, we must delve into the history of their homeland, Nubia. Located south of Egypt, this region, rich in gold and characterized by desert landscapes carved by the Nile River, was the birthplace of one of antiquity's most fascinating civilizations. Here emerged the Kingdom of Kush, which for centuries thrived as a cultural, commercial, and military power. Nubia was far more than just a neighbor to Egypt. It was a strategic land connecting North Africa to the heart of the continent. The Nubians controlled vital trade routes traversed by caravans laden with incense, ivory, and, of course, the highly coveted gold. It's no wonder the Egyptians referred to this region as Ta Seti, the land of the bow, in honor of the Nubian archers' unmatched skill. The Kingdom of Kush rose amidst this wealth and prosperity. Initially influenced by Egyptian dynasties, it adopted religious practices, construction techniques, and even hieroglyphic writing. Yet, the Nubians were not mere imitators. They forged a unique identity that grew stronger with every challenge they faced. When Egypt fell into decline, Kush emerged as the dominant power in the region, consolidating its authority and establishing Napata, and later Meroe, as capitals of a vibrant kingdom. The strength of the Nubians was evident not only in their military prowess but also in their architecture. Smaller but equally impressive pyramids began to dot the desert, silent witnesses to a people determined to leave their mark on history. From an arid and seemingly inhospitable land arose a kingdom that not only endured through centuries but also challenged the pharaohs themselves. The Nubians were only beginning their ascent as one of antiquity's great civilizations. In the battlefields of antiquity, few weapons were as feared as the Nubian longbow. With deadly precision and remarkable range, it was not only a tool of war but also a symbol of identity for the Nubian people. Archers from this region were so skilled that Egypt often enlisted them as mercenaries, and ancient texts frequently referred to their reputation as the Masters of the Bow. These warriors didn't learn archery for sport. The bow was an extension of their lives. From an early age, Nubian children were taught to handle this weapon, partly for hunting and partly to defend their communities. Their bows, crafted from acacia wood reinforced with animal sinew, were designed for strength and durability. Arrows with metal or stone tips were engineered to pierce the toughest defenses, and Nubian archers were known for their frightening speed in battle. On the battlefield, their strategy was simple yet devastating: strike from a distance. Using open formations, they moved swiftly, leveraging the desert terrain to ambush unsuspecting foes. Their ability to take down enemies before they even came close made them both legendary and feared. Imagine the psychological impact. Entire armies hesitated to face the Nubians, knowing their ranks would be decimated before they could engage in close combat. For the Nubians, the bow was more than a weapon. It was the heart of their resistance and a symbol of their strength. In a remarkable twist of history, the Nubians, long seen as either allies or rivals of Egypt, ascended to rule the largest empire of their era. This marked the beginning of the era of the Black Pharaohs, when kings of the Kingdom of Kush ruled Egypt as the 25th dynasty, creating one of the most fascinating chapters of ancient history. It all began with Pi, the Nubian king who sought to unify Egypt under his rule. This was no easy feat. He had to defeat several local rulers. Yet Pi was more than just a conqueror. He saw unification as a divine mission. He restored temples, preserved Egyptian traditions, and ruled with a sense of justice that even impressed his adversaries. After him, other Nubian pharaohs continued his legacy, including Shabaka, who consolidated Nubian authority in Egypt, and Taharqa, perhaps the most renowned of them all. Taharqa not only defended Egypt from foreign invasions but also invested in grand construction projects, such as temples and pyramids, that symbolized the greatness of Nubian rule. However, this golden era didn't last forever. External pressures, such as Assyrian invasions, forced the Nubians to retreat to their homeland. Yet, the cultural and political impact of the Nubian dynasty remained etched in Egyptian history, proving that these warriors were far more than skilled archers, they were visionary leaders. The Nubian strength on the battlefield stemmed not just from their weapons but also from their strategic brilliance. Masters of utilizing their surroundings and resources, they developed tactics that often left their enemies disoriented and vulnerable. The desert, seemingly inhospitable, was their most reliable ally. The Nubians knew every dune, every rock, and every gorge in their territory. They used this knowledge to execute devastating ambushes, hiding in elevated or narrow terrains to strike without warning. Arrows launched from afar wreaked havoc before the enemy even knew they were under attack. It was as if the desert itself fought alongside them. When ambushes weren't an option, the Nubians employed open, flexible formations that allowed rapid movement. This mobility starkly contrasted with the slower, tightly organized infantry of Egyptian armies. It gave the Nubians an edge. They could attack, retreat, and regroup before their enemies could respond. Another brilliant tactic was the use of decoys. Small groups of Nubian warriors would advance to provoke the enemy, luring them into pursuing what seemed like an easy target. But this was just the first step of the trap. Once their opponents entered the chosen terrain, the rest of the Nubian forces would encircle them, ensuring victory. This ability to plan and execute effective strategies was also evident in the defense of their borders. For centuries, the Nubians safeguarded the kingdom of Kush from Egyptian and later Assyrian invasions, bravely holding their ground against larger and better-equipped armies. The Nubians were not just warriors of strength, they were masters of ingenuity and resilience. Every battle was a test of intelligence, courage, and loyalty to their land and people. For the Nubians, war and spirituality were deeply intertwined. Their warriors did not fight solely for land or wealth. They believed their actions on the battlefield were an extension of divine will. Religion was an essential part of Nubian identity, shaping both their daily lives and military strategies. The Nubians adopted and adapted many religious practices from Egypt but also maintained unique beliefs and rituals. One of their most revered deities was Ammonius, the god of the sky and creation. In Napata, the spiritual capital of Kush, the temple of Ammonius stood as the kingdom's religious heart. Warriors and leaders often sought blessings there before critical battles, believing that victory or defeat was determined by divine favor. Beyond Ammonius, the Nubians held a profound reverence for ancestral spirits. To them, ancestors were spiritual guides who protected families and the kingdom. Before battle, rituals involving sacrifices and prayers were conducted to invoke the strength and wisdom of these spirits. A fascinating aspect of their spirituality was the role of queen priestesses, known as Kandakes. These women held significant religious and political influence. They often led rituals and were seen as intermediaries between the human and divine realms, reinforcing the connection between spiritual and military power. On the battlefield, this unshakable faith gave Nubian warriors extraordinary courage. They believed that dying in battle was a sacred act that guaranteed them a special place in the afterlife. This blend of spirituality and bravery made the Nubians not only skilled fighters but also deeply revered figures within their society. With religion guiding their actions, the Nubians found the strength to face formidable enemies and protect their kingdom. For them, fighting was more than a duty, it was an act of faith. Nubian warriors were not just defenders of their lands, they were central figures in the social structure of Kush. Respected and admired, they played a role that extended beyond the battlefield. They were symbols of strength, loyalty, and connection to the spiritual and cultural traditions of the kingdom. In Nubian society, warriors belonged to an elite often distinguished by their skill and dedication. Many came from noble families, but others rose to warrior status through their bravery and exceptional prowess with the bow. This recognition bridged social divides, as courage on the battlefield often transcended one's origins. In daily life, warriors actively participated in their communities. When not training or fighting, they contributed by hunting, a vital activity for providing food and hides. Hunting was also seen as an extension of military training, requiring patience, precision, and strategy, skills essential in combat. The Nubians placed great value on family, and their warriors were no exception. Despite the dangers of their role, they were devoted fathers, husbands, and brothers. Families, in turn, played a critical role in providing emotional and spiritual support, performing protective rituals before military campaigns and celebrating victories upon their warriors' return. Moreover, Nubian warriors were key to preserving traditions. They participated in religious festivals and ceremonies, often serving as temple guardians and leading processions and celebrations. They were a constant reminder of the kingdom's strength, not only to its enemies but also to its own people. This balance between military and civilian life made Nubian warriors complete figures. They were heroes in battle, protectors of their families, and pillars of the community, leaving a legacy that still resonates as an enduring example of courage and humanity. The lives of the Nubians were far richer and more intriguing than mere battles and conquests. They were masters of transforming their environment, forging a robust culture adapted to the conditions of the Nile Valley and the surrounding desert. In daily life, the bow and hunting played a vital role. Beyond serving as military training, hunting provided food and hides. Antelopes, for example, were among the most hunted animals, and capturing them required patience and skill. Hunting wasn't just practical, it reinforced the qualities of a warrior. The Nubian diet was simple but efficient. Grains like sorghum were used to make bread and fermented beverages, while fish from the Nile and local fruits rounded out their meals. The land provided everything they needed, and the Nubians knew how to use it to its fullest potential. Their attire also stood out. Despite the desert's demands for simplicity, they adorned themselves with gold jewelry and precious stones, symbols of status and achievement. Bracelets, necklaces, and other ornaments reflected both wealth and respect for tradition. Music and dance held a special place in their culture. Celebrations were accompanied by drums, flutes, and string instruments, creating vibrant rhythms that brought communities together. The energy of these moments contrasted with the desert silence, showcasing the festive side of this resilient people. Nubian pyramids are another remarkable feature. Although smaller than their Egyptian counterparts, they were equally grand, built as tombs for kings and queens. Each pyramid bore detailed inscriptions commemorating the deeds of those buried within, emphasizing their connection to the gods and eternity. With lives shaped by the strength of the land and their traditions, the Nubians left a legacy that is both sophisticated and deeply tied to their survival in a challenging environment. The legacy of the Nubians has not faded with time. On the contrary, their story continues to inspire and influence global culture, appearing in books, films, games, and even the way we view African history. They left a mark that transcends centuries, continually rediscovered and celebrated. In cinema, while Nubians are not often the protagonists, their presence is felt in stories exploring ancient Egypt and its neighboring regions. Films like Cleopatra and Gods of Egypt briefly touch on Nubian culture, albeit not always accurately. However, the portrayal of the Black Pharaohs has gained attention in documentaries and historical series, such as Africa's Great Civilizations, narrated by historian Henry Louis Gates, Jr. In literature, Nubians are central figures in historical novels exploring the relationship between Egypt and its neighbors. Modern authors have worked to highlight these peoples, presenting them as complex and heroic figures. Both academic and fictional works help reconstruct the image of Nubians as leaders and innovators. We mustn't forget video games, either. Strategy games like Civilization VI introduced leaders inspired by Nubian figures, such as Amani Tor, one of Kush's great queens. These games not only entertain but also educate, introducing Nubian culture to a new generation of players. In recent years, cultural movements have reclaimed pride in African civilizations, including the Nubians, as part of a broader narrative about the continent's contribution to global history. Museum exhibitions, such as those at the British Museum, display artifacts that reveal Kush's sophistication, while scholars work to correct outdated and incomplete interpretations of their role in history. The Nubians' influence is not just an echo of the past. It remains alive in many forms, reminding us that this civilization was far more than just a warrior people. It was a creator of a legacy that still inspires the modern world. The Nubians were far more than skilled archers or neighbors of Egypt. They were a historical force that challenged empires, shaped cultures, and etched their legacy into the sands of the desert and the stone temples they built. Their stories, though sometimes overlooked, reveal a people of courage and determination whose influence still resonates today. Throughout this journey, we've seen how the Nubians transformed the bow into a symbol of power and survival, erected pyramids that preserved the memory of their leaders, and defended their kingdom with brilliant tactics. Yet, we also discovered their human side. A people who celebrated life with music and dance, honored their ancestors, and adapted to one of the most challenging environments on the planet. Reflecting on the Nubians leads us to ask what truly defines a great people. Is it military achievements, cultural richness, or perhaps the ability to endure, innovate, and leave an indelible mark on the world? And therein lies the beauty of looking back at history. It reminds us that stories like that of the Nubians are not merely records of ancient times. They show us that even amid adversity, it is possible to build something grand, something that inspires future generations. If you were as fascinated by this story as we were, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to catch our upcoming videos. That way, you can continue exploring the tales of the greatest warriors to ever walk the earth. And tell us in the comments, which part of the Nubian story surprised you the most? We can't wait to hear from you and find out which warriors you'd like to learn about in future episodes. The Nubians have shown us that power lies not only in physical strength but also in the wisdom and courage to defend what truly matters. Until next time on Warriors of the World.